Hey, what's up, guys? On my channel, I like to talk about certain topics that have to do with steroids that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. The subject I'm going to address today, I have heard some influencers talk about, but not in great detail. It's not something that I hear often, but I think it's one that is important, which is I believe that certain steroid stacks or certain steroid combinations have a synergistic effect where the sum of them together, the cumulative, like the sum, is a greater effect than each individual, okay? If that makes sense. But I'll start with this. If you add, say, something that has a anabolic rating of 100, say testosterone, with something that has another anabolic rating of 100, that should mean that cumulatively there's 200 anabolic, correct? And the same could be done with the androgenic rating as well. Even though that just gives a ballpark, that's not totally accurate. So that's like a 1 + 1 = 2 type of scenario, right? Where there's a cumulative anabolic effect between compounds, which makes sense. You know, if you're doing a half gram of total gear composed to 1 gram of gear, that's like twice as much. So there's going to be, it's just basic math that there's going to be a cumulative anabolic effect that's greater when you do more. Okay? But that doesn't mean more is always better, but that's a whole other topic. Now, what I'm suggesting with the synergistic effect, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's more like 1 + 1 = 3. It's like the sum is is greater than the actual two parts. So why is that? And there's been, so all through steroid history, there's been certain combinations that just work. Okay? The classic one is the Deca D-ball, like that one for just mass building, and it was like, even though I wouldn't suggest that one to do now, but at the time it was like one that just worked. And there's something about D-ball and potentially like all the downstream type of products of D-ball that happens in the body, and then add that on with the nandrolone. The cumulative effect potentially is greater than just adding the two together. I don't know 100% on that one, but I know that there's a synergisticity that just works. Okay. Another example is again nandrolone, Deca, and EQ. Just works. So why is that? Now, I'm not going to get it. Maybe some of you know this a lot better because I don't have all the answers on the biochemical reasons. I do have some, but there's obviously, and maybe there's some things going on here that science is still yet to fully explain. But I'm going to explain a few basic things that I think are pretty well known. So, like, we have androgen receptor sites, correct? Some compounds make those receptor sites more sensitive. Like they're able to, steroids are able to bind to them, and since they're able to bind to them, the steroids are able to do more to the tissue site, grow more tissue, correct? And that's part of why, like if you add, I think Masteron does this well with the binding globulin. So I don't know the exact term. It's SHB something. Some of you guys know this is a very basic thing. I should know this. But I believe Masteron allows testosterone to bind to the tissue site white better, just like Proviron supposedly does. It's like allows for testosterone to do its job better. So you know, if you take if the same person takes 250 testosterone, but one person does Proviron, but the other one doesn't, the person who takes Proviron, the testosterone is going to bind to more tissue sites, essentially. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I'm on the right path here. So therefore, adding the two together allows for, there's a synergistic effect. They work together in various pathways where the end result is more growth. So by leveraging multiple compounds, there's a whole nother effect. Now, obviously there's other synergistic effects. I think there's multiple different types of synergistic effects, so I'm going to address another one, which is obviously various compounds have various traits and characteristics. Some are more wet, some add more growth to you, like you blow up a lot faster, which isn't necessarily a good thing because a lot of it's just water weight, but sometimes that is desirable, and sometimes those compounds are involved in strength. But then there's other ones that kind of dry you out. So maybe, like, this is why I think, anyway, and this is one of my stack is combining Masteron with Nandrolone, because Nandrolone on top of testosterone can kind of bloat you out a bit. I've experienced that when I really push my doses. But then adding, like, Masteron can kind of be, I think, a counterbalance to that. So, because it's a drying compound, so it dries you out. A lot of people say that kind of cancels things out, but I don't think so. I think it's actually the opposite. I think it works together, a synergistic effect, because you get all the strength gains and the size gains from Nandrolone, but you're not going to bloat up as much. So that's one, right? There's also other ones. I know I'm not huge into my knowledge about Trenbolone, but what I do know is some things is that it can help with like stress hormone cortisol levels, and potentially the stress involved in certain situations by taking other compounds. It might, and like doing a lot of activity that can help with that. So I know there's other things. I don't want to address things that I don't know. I don't want to talk out of my ass about things. I want to address, but I have heard. So I'm just throwing that potential out there. Again, maybe you guys can help me fill in some of these gaps. Okay? But I do know that other compounds, they just work. Like there's certain things like testosterone, primobolan, and anavar for lean, solid gains that you can hold on to those gains. And there's something about anavar and primobolan that really work well together as well. Again, I don't know the molecular explanation or whatever, but there's just certain combinations that just work for certain. Obviously, it depends on your goal and such. Now, I talked about steroids, but I also want to talk about another important compound, which is HGH. You know, I think a lot of guys who take the PED route, they neglect HGH, and that's unfortunate because it is kind of the puzzle piece that makes everything fit together. It is the synergistic effect that's needed, which is, I've talked about this in other previous videos, and I know a lot of influencers online have talked about this as well, which is when you take testosterone, one of the desired effects from it is actually it converting to estrogen. And obviously you don't want to convert to estrogen too high, but you want good estrogen levels. You don't want your estrogen to be crushed. Like some people, they take testosterone, then they take an AI, or maybe high amounts of EQ that could crush it or something like that. No, you don't want to crush your estrogen, because the estrogen then interacts with HGH. Well, actually, IGF factor 1. HGH converts to IGF factor 1 in the liver, I believe. And then, as well as probably other sites in the body. And then the IGF factor 1 interacts with estrogen at tissue sites. Without the estrogen, the IGF factor would not be able to proliferate tissue. Proliferate being like duplicate tissues. Okay? So that is an important factor, because this is the synergistic effect. The testosterone converting to estrogen and the HGH converting to IGF factor 1. So it's like two things downstream interacting with each other. That is a major synergistic effect. That is like the biggest one. That's why I left it to last, because this is like the major thing. Now, when you add on top of that, I believe, other secondary compounds like Nandrolone, it just adds one more dimension to it. Okay? Because the amount of muscle growth you get from Nandrolone testosterone stack even by itself, add the HGH to that, and do that over a period of time, because HGH is kind of a slow burner, so you have to you'll see the results in like 4 months to 6 months though on doing that, and it'll be sustained growth. Like it'll be growth that will never be able to be like technically taken away from you, because it's being proliferated. New muscle cells are being proliferated, they grow. Okay? And these types of tissue sites are not normally sites that grow. or duplicate, because muscle cells don't duplicate. So that is a beneficial aspect. I guess the other thing I should mention is that some compounds are better for recovery as well. So when you stack one that's better for recovery on one that necessarily isn't, you'll get the benefits of both, right? You'll get consistent gains with good recovery. That's a good synergistic effect as well. What other ones are out there? I think there could be more. Maybe something has to do with better cardiovascular. One might be better for cardiovascular, and like maybe there's an EQ combination, and maybe something like T-ball combination or something that's better for that. I don't know. Again, I don't want to talk about things. I don't want to be here sound like I'm talking about out my ass about things that I don't know fully about. But I do know that synergistic effect is real, and I guess I'll conclude by saying that the one I'm on right now, I believe there is one, which is the testosterone, masteron, and androlone. I believe masteron allows better receptor site to binding of steroids too, which is going to improve your gains in the end. And I believe masteron, as I mentioned before, counteracts with the bloating effect, which is ideal as well. So I'll leave it there, guys. What are your thoughts? Leave in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. Peace.